Good morning, everybody. How's it going? Today we are continuing our background knowledge building of Catcher in the Rye, but more specifically, we're going to talk about what the focus of this unit is. So, what are the foci? Okay, the several things that we're focusing on throughout this unit. Well, first of all, we want to consider how a writer uses literary techniques to communicate ideas. This specific book, Catcher in the Rye, is just dripping with style and technique and voice. So, we're going to use that to begin thinking about how individual techniques and tools create deeper, more interesting reading. We want to think about the effects that those literary techniques have on a reader specifically. How do these different tools communicate with an audience? And really, the underlying intention here is that all of this discussion is going to help you get ready for the style of analysis that you'll be doing in your IB classes. It's a much more technical style of analysis, but I think you'll get the hang of it. Finally, we're going to specifically explore and better understand the literary technique of symbolism, and more specifically within that, motif, the way a writer communicates deeper ideas through surface level images. Okay, so what are we doing today specifically? We're going to learn about some significant terminology. We're going to dig deeper into the terminology of style and voice, technique, and intended effect. And then we're going to do a little bit of practice when it comes to recognizing and analyzing these stylistic techniques, these choices, and what they do for the reader. So our big newish terms for this unit, the stuff that we're going to be really focusing on very directly, are going to include voice and style, technique, and intended effect, all of which we'll discuss today. Then motif, symbolism, stream of consciousness, dialect, direct characterization, indirect characterization, foil, and unreliable narrator. You may have explored these concepts in the past, but they're going to still be the focus of much of our work throughout this novel. And of course, in order to do real analysis, you have to be able to discuss all of the crucial literary language that we've been building up throughout our entire English class careers. Figurative language, juxtaposition, tone, mood, diction, connotation, purposeful structure, syntax, all of the different literary elements. You're going to need to employ those to give precise analysis of what we're reading. Okay, let's get down to our three big terms for today and our three big focuses for our unit moving forward. First, we have style and voice. So what is style and voice? Well, it's the unique way a writer makes choices in their writing. You have to remember that, like visual artists, writers have distinct methods of delivering their message, of delivering their work to an audience, and of using specific linguistic tools like figurative language or structure to make that message clearer. Now, the specific way those linguistic tools are used in a piece, that is style and voice. It is the way a writer uses their tools in a idiosyncratic way. You're going to want to go ahead and pause this video for a second now so that you can paraphrase these notes into your note sheet. Okay, now speaking to style and voice, let's break down what we're talking about a little bit using a visual example. Okay, here we have Courbet versus Van Gogh. Both artists created both landscapes and self-portraits. We have an example of those right here. So these are the same kinds of texts done by two different individuals, two different styles. Pause your video again and just jot down underneath those paintings, okay, how would you describe these styles? How would you describe their different use of technique? How are these two versions of the same types of text different? Okay, now that we're back. So, what did you say? What I would say is Courbet is using much more naturalistic lighting and color, whereas Van Gogh is using much more vibrant, heightened color. Courbet has, again, a more naturalistic approach to texture, whereas Van Gogh has kind of a uniform texture throughout the piece that gives it an underlying mood. There's the use of line, there's the use of shadow or the absence of shadow. There are so many different things that these these artists have done that make their pieces unique. Again, two identical types of text, landscape painting and self-portrait painting, done in an individualized stylistic way. Okay, now let's talk about the term technique. So what is technique? Well, it's specific, deliberate constructions of language like literary devices or rhetorical devices that a writer uses to help the reader understand their ideas. Basically, it's any tool, any writing tool that you can use in your piece that will help your ideas come across more clearly. Now, these include things like figurative language, structural choices, diction, tone. Again, all of the linguistic and organizational choices a person can make in a piece of writing. But be aware, technique does not include literary elements. Those are things like plot, conflict, setting, etc. It is the way that those components are described that is style. So if you use a metaphor for characterization or if you use imagery for setting, that is technique right there. I'm going to let you pause it again and paraphrase these notes. Okay, so here we have a passage. We shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Now take a moment here and put down what you think is the dominant technique being used in this passage. What technique is used the most or most prominently? Go ahead and pause and I'll give you a second to put down your specific idea. Okay, as for me, what I noticed as the dominant technique here, the main technique being used in this passage was purposeful repetition. Specifically, anaphora, the repetition at the beginning of those clauses. But what does this all mean now that I've been able to identify the main technique? Well, I have to think about what the effect of that technique is. Okay, writers use techniques purposefully to get specific results, which help the reader understand important ideas. And these kinds of results include, these effects that writers might try to create include things like creating mood or tone, emphasizing ideas or concepts, highlighting information or details, providing more precise details, more specific information, contrasting or comparing, implying an idea or information, making a connection, or acting as or drawing attention to symbols. So what was the intended effect here? I'm going to let you go ahead and pause this again and pop down what you think. You can correct this after we discuss in a second, but what do you think the intended effect of all that repetition was? Okay, so what did I say? Well, I said that the repetition of the we has the connotation of togetherness, so that the idea of unity is emphasized. And then the word shall, the repetition of shall, as in we will do this, stresses the need for action, but also a certainty in success. Okay, it creates a positive, hopeful tone, which can lead to an overall uplifting mood within the piece. So ultimately, all of these help the message of the passage, which is that these people can and will overcome tremendous challenges through cooperation, become clearer for the audience. All right, so now I want you guys to do a little bit of independent practice with this style of analysis, this very technical analysis. There are 3 passages after these notes. Use the guides to help you craft for analysis for the first 2. I've given you guys a lot of guardrails to help you break this process down. And if you're feeling like these guardrails are holding you back, don't be afraid to take the analysis somewhere else if you're feeling confident in your ability to analyze. And remember, make sure you're thinking about what the message of the piece is and how the technique makes it clearer for the reader. What is this passage trying to say? How do these techniques help it say that? Have a beautiful day, children. Hit me up if you have any questions or concerns. Don't roast me about that typo I saw. It happens, okay? It happens. Things are hard right now. All right. Bye, guys.